Hello and welcome to this tutorial on SteamVR importation and publishing. If you're looking for help with programming handset input, there is another tutorial for that, and I'll put that link in the description. In this scene, I've actually already created a virtual world with the terrain tool, and I've used Google Poly ToolKit to kind of put these animals in here and this fire effect. That's also from a previous tutorial called using Poly Toolkit in Unity, and then there's another tutorial called Unity Introduction and Terrain Tools if you'd like to see those. In this tutorial, all I'm going to do is simply get SteamVR working with this scene that I'll say is, quote unquote done, and I'm ready for VR. So I'm going to go to the asset store, search for SteamVR, all one word. It's a plugin made by Valve, and I'm going to go ahead and import this. One of the things I always teach people is to twirl close before you import everything by clicking import, just to see sort of what folders are going to be coming in. So all these assets are contained in SteamVR, and they're going to be sort of added to my standard assets folder that I already have. So it's good to know, so if I ever have to delete this stuff, I can kind of look around for where all this stuff is. So I'm going to import this into the project. So right away after you import SteamVR, it's actually going to bring up this settings window, and Steam is set up to modify your Unity settings so that it works with the HTC Vive or any other SteamVR compatible or OpenVR compatible headset. And right away they're just going to say, are you okay with doing this? And you just say accept all, and then it'll tell you that you made the right choice. So now if you go back to your scene view, right now for me I have a main camera that's associated with my FPS controller, so there's a camera on there that gets used when I press play. Without doing anything else, your main camera will actually take on the VR headset after you've imported Steam and allowed the settings to change. So if I hit play, it's automatically going to run SteamVR, which is located on my computer. If you have an HTC Vive attached to your computer, it will probably run this runtime down here. So I've got my headset attached. I'm going to go ahead and start moving it, and you can see I can actually kind of look around. The problem is this FPS controller that my headset is using is not made for VR. So like, I'm not planning on having my user use the keyboard like I'm doing here to walk around. So I don't really want to use that headset or that specific user interface. So I'm gonna get rid of FPS controller. And like something you can do, there's not much functionality to it, is you can just throw a main camera in your project. So you can hit 3D object. Actually, I'm sorry. You just go down here to camera, or you can go to game object, camera, and then it puts a camera in your scene. So as soon as you hit play, I think it should use that camera. You might have to be tagged, but yeah, so that's using that camera, and there's no handsets. If you turn your handsets on, they won't show up. Nothing like that. This is just sort of a view into the virtual world. And by the way, the reason this even works is because of the OpenVR settings. I'm going to go to File, Build Settings, and Player Settings, and then over here on the right, you can close these by just clicking on the names. But under XR settings, if you open that up, you'll see that it says virtual reality supported. If you uncheck that, it's going to do some sort of compilation here. And then if I hit play, I am no longer in VR. Shouldn't be. Yeah, so it's no longer in VR. I'm moving the headset around and it's not tracking. And oh, now it is. So I guess what I did was it automatically checked the box for me because of the SteamVR stuff being in there. So if you really wanted to turn SteamVR off, I think you have to uncheck virtual reality supported and get rid of the SteamVR folder down here. So just be aware of that. That's what I would call residue in a project. So if you're making a project that has a VR version and a version that does not, make sure you separate your projects, because it gets kind of tricky once you put SteamVR in your project to kind of get away from it. It can be done though. So anyway, I'm going to keep VR supported on, and the problem now is I want to see my handsets, right? So I'm going to delete this camera here. I don't need that. I'm actually going to use a prefab that came in from SteamVR. So close build settings. My FPS controller is like right here. So I want my camera rig to basically be in the same spot, that starting position, and for my VR headset. And if you go into SteamVR, there's a folder called prefabs, and there's one object prefab in here called camera rig. So you want to take that and sort of drag it out into your scene somewhere. But since you want to associate it with your FPS controller's like starting position, you can click on that, and on the transform for whatever you're trying to locate it with, you can just actually copy the component by right-clicking on the text, copy component, and then going over to your camera rig and right-clicking on its text and saying paste component values. Now it's in the same spot, okay? It's a little bit elevated above the ground. This representation here of the floor is this blue sort of outline. I'm going to drop that down until it kind of goes to the ground. That works. And over here on the right, you have some things you can set for the size of that. So you can actually say calibrated, and it'll read what your computer has calibrated for the size of your track space. Or you can just set it to some arbitrary values if you're designing for an unknown VR system setup. And now, if you hit play, your system should be working. If you have handsets turned on and they're recognized by SteamVR, they should recognize. Oh, I forgot about this. So this part always sort of trips me up. It's new. It's actually new in 2019. Or actually 2018. The end of 2018, they added this sort of new way to manage SteamVR input. And they're asking, since I'm running this for the first time, would you like to open the SteamVR input window? Yes. Okay. And then, while I'm waiting for that, it comes in, and by default, it's got all this stuff set up for my action set, which is called default. In my other tutorial, I'm going to cover how to like change this and work with it in scripts, but for right now, we don't need to, so I'm going to hit save and generate. And again, this is all relating to the buttons and touchpads and triggers and things like that on the handles that come with the headset. And then now it's going to want you to save this. So it's like a config file, so I'm going to hit save. And it blinks around and changes things. And then now you can actually close this window. Once you've saved that once, you don't have to do it again unless you're actually making modifications. So now if I hit play, there we go. The VR headset is working. Now if I take my handsets and hold them up, they are also here in the space. Okay. Now let's publish this application. It doesn't do much more. I can't teleport, by the way. That's something I'll cover in another tutorial. I can't teleport, I can't drive around or anything like that, but at least we've got VR working and we can kind of visualize what this environment looks like from this vantage point right here. Okay, so to publish, you go to File, Build Settings, and then you want to add the open scene. And there should be like a blank one here in the beginning that says deleted. You can leave it there or you can select it and say delete. I don't know why that's there. Anyway, PC, Mac, Linux standalone, that's what we're publishing for. And really all you have to do is say build, and then it'll go right here into your Unity project, right by where the assets folder is. And I'm going to make a new folder here, and I'm going to put in VR project. And I'll write here Vive because I'm building it for the Vive. Open that, say select folder. It will compile it out, and then you're actually going to have an executable file that you can share, and people can run it on their own Vives or SteamVR compliant VR headsets. Depending on how much you have in your scene will depend on how long this takes. Bigger projects that I've worked on, I've had compiling processes that last for up to 5 minutes. This one looks like it's probably based on the trees that's slowing it down. Shouldn't take too long though. And then as soon as it's done, it'll actually open up the window on where this was exported to. All right, so the project's done building, and here it is here. It created this large production here of lots and lots of files together, and they're all in support of this project, or this executable file that is titled what I titled it when I exported it. So what's really cool here is if you run it, Unity went ahead and put in a nice little configuration box that comes up, and you can choose like the screen resolution. I'm going to choose windowed, and I don't need it to go full screen, but I'll do 1080p here. You can set the graphics quality, how much taxes your graphics card. I'm going to hit play, and then here we're going to see the scene. But here we go. I'm now in a standalone application that I'm running off of the VR headset that I have here, and I'm looking around and I can see that otter. You can see my handsets here, and we've published a VR application. Now it's a pretty basic VR application, so please check on my other tutorial on how to add more complex capabilities in Unity Scripting Basics for SteamVR handset input, and that should be in the description for a link. Thanks. If you need help from the Advanced Visualization Lab at Indiana University, you can contact vizhelp@iu.edu. Thank you.